Attacks on many fronts. There is one front that Britain has held firm since the outbreak of war, the Atlantic. Been taken of our shipping by plane and U-boat, but the line still holds. And one vital factor in holding that line is the ML. The captain forms the flotilla. Flag is a signal to let go a depth charge. Number one attacks.
How's it going, guys? U Ottawa Scotty here. I'm standing in front of my GRU 1850 Challenger, which is an 18.5 foot. It has an Alpha 1 stern drive and an 165 horse inline 6. A fairly unassuming craft. It's buried in snow right now. It's got a lot of battle scars, a lot of blemishes, but it still runs, still drives, and I use it every summer. I've had a lot of good times on this boat, and I'll continue using it for as long as I possibly can. It will be the subject of future repair and restoration videos, but that is not what this video is going to be all about. Myself being a proud Canadian, I'm always fascinated with Canadian products made and manufactured right here in Canada. It seems as though Canadian products are very high quality, and the companies that design and build them take a lot of pride and care into manufacturing their products, and GRU Boats is a very good example of that. Now, for whatever reason, these great Canadian manufacturers oftentimes meet a very dramatic and tragic end. A lot of history there. This video is going to go deep into the history of GRU Boats, and if that interests you, stick around. The original founder of GRU Boats was a man by the name of Arthur Grew. Arthur was born in 1885 in London, Ontario, and lived until 1952. As a teenager, he was fascinated with the long tradition of wooden boat building in Ontario, and from approximately 1900 to 1907, he learned how to construct by hand various types of boats during his apprenticeship for the famous Ackroyd & Sons Boat Builder Company, located at the foot of Bathurst Street, right beside the National Yacht Club in Toronto. The National Yacht Club still exists to this day, located adjacent to the Toronto Islands, separated by the Western Channel across from the Toronto Airport. The Ackroyd Boat Building Company flourished in large part based off the production of a single vessel type, which was their hugely popular 14-foot sailing dinghy. Just prior to the Ackroyd & Sons production facility closing in 1943, the company celebrated their 2500th sailing dinghy produced, a monumental achievement considering most of these vessels were made mostly by hand. Although quite rare, there are a few surviving examples of this sailing dinghy throughout the cottage country in Ontario today. Arthur learned fast at the Ackroyd & Sons facility, but sometime in 1907 began to experience significant health problems relating to his asthmatic condition. And so, on the advice of his doctor, he decided to pack up and move to Jackson Point, Ontario, on the shore of Lake Simcoe, to be in cleaner air and to start his own company. This was the original GRU Boat Building Company. GRU Boats flourished at Jackson Point, and with the completion of the electric railroad from Toronto to Simcoe, there was a huge influx of vacationers from Toronto who wanted to purchase boats. Additionally, Arthur also ran a very profitable boat rental business. All was going well until 1929, when the Great Depression hit. Arthur found himself struggling to keep GRU Boats and his employees going in a time where there was very little disposable income. He turned to one of his former customers for help, Clarence Kemp, an extremely wealthy and successful businessman that was a third-generation heir to a successful metal manufacturing and fabrication firm called General Steel Wares. Clarence purchased GRU Boats in 1930 and retained Arthur and his workers to continue building boats, although at a reduced scale. Clarence Kemp was very much a silent owner, standing clear of operations, remaining for the most part in the background. Surviving the Depression, Clarence clearly enjoyed being in the boat manufacturing business, and just prior to World War II, in 1939, Clarence Kemp purchased the struggling Gidley Boat Company in Penetanguishene, Ontario, on the shores of Georgian Bay. Clarence renamed the Gidley Company as Grew Boats, but also kept the Jackson Point facility managed by Arthur Grew. Now, Grew Boats had 2 manufacturing facilities. The Gidley Boat Company, now Grew Boats, were one of Canada's premier boat builders, making a wide range of vessels and producing boats of significant size, luxury, and innovation. Their facility was more technologically advanced than the Jackson Point facility. As the war progressed, Grew Boats in Penetanguishene earned federal government contracts to build wooden bridge barges, 20 and 30-foot tenders, and even a 140-foot minesweeper. But most famously, they were awarded the contract to build 3 of the 8 commissioned Fairmile destroyers to be built in Canada. These 3 Fairmiles were built in the Penetanguishene Grew boat building facility. The Fairmile was hugely popular in World War II and credited for making a significant impact on the outcome of the war, especially with regard to easing the strain on Atlantic shipping routes, terrorized by German U-boats. The Fairmile was designed to be a highly utilitarian Swiss Army knife type vessel. It was narrow and sleek with a deep draft, giving it good speed on the open water, and due to its clever deck design could be retrofitted within hours to be a destroyer, torpedo boat, anti-submarine, reconnaissance, or rescue vessel. It was also made entirely of wood, which is an innovative approach for a wartime vessel at the time. This design feature cut down on the heavy demand for steel during wartime and could make use of Canada's wide array of skilled wood boat building craftsmen, such as Grew Boats and Penetanguishene. Being made entirely of wood had some other convenient sides, in that it made the vessel less visible to radar. Post-war, both operations continued to prosper, but in 1950, Kemp sold the Penetanguishene facility, along with the Grew name, to a group of Toronto businessmen headed by Colonel W.E. Phillips, who docked his converted Fairmile at the plant. Arthur Grew stayed with the Jackson Point facility, which had to be renamed since the Grew name had now been sold. It was given the new moniker, Bonnie Boats, and continued to build oak, cedar, mahogany skiffs, tenders, and outboard-powered runabouts. Sadly, Arthur Grew died 2 years later in 1952, and the Bonnie Boats facility was sold again, eventually ceasing production of boats and operating instead as a marina for the remainder of its days. The marina was hugely popular among visitors and the public for its favorable public boat launch, large number of slips, fuel, storage, rental, and other miscellaneous services. With great disdain from Jackson Point locals, and even though being zoned a historical site, the Bonnie Boats Marina was sold to the municipality for redevelopment, and the last vestiges of the Bonnie Boats buildings were demolished in 2018. With the property cleared, the municipality informed the public that the site was being developed to be the future home of the York Regional Police Marine Unit, closing the public launch. The Police Marine Unit was officially opened and began operations in October of 2020, putting a stark and final end to the colorful history of one of 2 locations of Grew Boats and the beloved Bonnie Boats Marina. Post-war in Penetanguishene, Grew Boats flourished not only with their own designs, but also by producing designs under license. However, the oil crisis of the 1970s, followed by the economic crisis of the early 80s, resulted in the sale of Grew a few times over to different owners, until it eventually shut down at the end of the decade. An employee group tried to keep production going, but that eventually collapsed too, leaving the remaining assets, including the boat molds, to be sold at auction. Sometime in the early 2000s, the molds were purchased and moved to a facility in Owen Sound near Highway 610, just north of Sunnyvale Road, where the new owners, the Camerons, would set up shop and continue making boats under the Grew name up until 2011. The plant employed 25 workers and approximately 10 office and sales personnel. This new factory also produced boats under the Profisher and Cutter brand names. Tragically, Grew Boats met its ultimate end on when returning from a boat show on Monday, February 21st, 2011, company owner David Cameron shot and wounded one of his own employees after becoming embroiled in an argument with an unidentified woman inside the GRU premises. It has never been made publicly clear what happened, but what is known is that the Grey County Detachment of the OPP responded to a reported shooting at the GRU Boats plant before 8 p.m. and found a 44-year-old employee suffering from a gunshot wound. As police attempted to secure the property, David Cameron is said to have abruptly exited the premises and drove past police, leading them on a brief chase before driving over a spike belt, being stopped on Taylor Side Road in Georgian Bluffs Township. At approximately 9:50 p.m., Cameron is reported to have exited the vehicle and exchanged gunshots with police before attempting to flee on foot. David Cameron ended his own life at the scene. Understandably, following the tragedy, the future of GRU Boats was extremely uncertain, but there were many attempts to salvage the business. The facility lay idle for 3 months while the Cameron family desperately tried to sell the business but failed. A London, Ontario commercial court judge on May 10, 2011, granted the Business Development Bank of Canada's application to place GRU Manufacturing into receivership. Buyers at the Toronto and Hamilton boat shows who placed orders and put money down joined the long line of employees and other creditors hoping to be compensated with the sale of assets from the company. Eventually, a buyer was found. Stephen Lynn Jobin purchased the former GRU plant, and it became the site of Steve Jobin and Sons Truck and Auto Center. From 2011 until 2014, the Jobins used a portion of the former GRU plant for their own operations, while renting 6 bays of the building to other mechanics and CAA towing businesses. But disaster was to strike again.
A massive fire at the former GRU Boats manufacturing property, located south of Owen Sound along Highway 6 and 10 Sunday night, damaged 2 businesses and left 1 resident homeless. According to police, the fire was reported at 8:52 p.m. Upon arrival, emergency crews found the main building of the property was completely engulfed in flames. The fire was fought by the Inter-Township Fire Department with assistance from firefighters from Owen Sound, Meaford, Chatsworth, Grey Highlands, Tara Aaron, West Grey, and South Bruce. Grey County OPP closed Highway 6 and 10 from Grey Road 18 south to Grey Road 16 so fire departments could run pumper trucks loaded with water from a nearby stream to the fire site. An Ontario Fire Marshal investigator was heading to the scene of the fire, which destroyed much of the former boat factory. Police say there are no reported injuries and the cause of the fire is to be investigated.
In a report written about the fire, it is said that owner Steve Jobin, arriving at the scene with his wife, experienced a, quote, mild cardio episode and was later taken to hospital. Fortunately, Steve Jobin recovered. Only a handful of the original boat molds from the former GRU factory survived the massive inferno of 2014, but ironically, in one of only 2 grass fires of the season of 2020 in the township of Chatsworth, the remaining molds were destroyed in yet another fire at the GRU property, which started indiscriminately, the cause to never have been found. This erased the last remaining evidence of the former Canadian Boat Company. Hey guys, Ottawa Scotty here. Thanks for tuning in to the channel. I really hope that you enjoyed that video. It was a lot of hard work to make, but I had a lot of fun doing it, so I hope to do more videos like that in the future. And of course, stick around to the channel, because as soon as the snow melts, I will be doing some restoration and repairs to my 1985 GRU, which of course now I'll have a whole new appreciation for after making this little mini documentary, whatever you want to call it. Anyways, stick around to the channel, or I've got all kinds of fun stuff coming up, and I hope you all will join me in the future. I hope you're all staying safe out there and happy. And this is Ottawa Scotty signing off. You have yourself a good evening.